Okay, so yes, this is legal, and it's my fourth cigarette of the day. And my father, who is an MD, told me that four or five cigarettes a day, and don't have to worry about it so much unless you have a special sensitivity. As long as you eat right and exercise, don't want to live a long life. Don't drink too much. Don't smoke too much. Don't drink. Don't smoke. Exercise and be happy. Be chill. Okay. Anyhow, so atzmut. So it's the first thing is the essential light, the essence of the light of the Ein Sof. That's it. The atzmut. Atzmut is a very important concept. The atzmut is the highest you can go in any kind of description of godliness. You can't talk about the Ein Sof, and you can't even talk about the atzmut, according to Rabbi Brandwein Zal. Rabbi Avram Brandwein said the difference between Chabad and Ashlag is in Chabad they discuss the atzmut. They have the seven Rebbes wrote Chassidus explaining concepts in the atzmus in Yiddish, the atzmut. But Rabbi Ashlag, he says somewhere, I guess, that he doesn't explain you can't, because Rabbi Brandwein was quoting Rabbi Ashlag somewhere. Anyhow, so atzmut is okay. You can't talk about that, but we can talk about what's coming out of that, right?
Right.
How does he continue? Shem matsui, that is found.
Matsui ben etzal, that is found next to
In
Ahu. What?
Let's give you 10 words today. If you have a pencil and paper.
No. I have to. Yeah, I guess so. Etzal. Okay, Netzal. Yeah.
1 second, Google Translate. Welsh, no, not Welsh. English too. I was taking some Welsh lessons last month, so very, very tough language. Anyhow, so Hebrew. Where's Hebrew? The way around. Yeah. Yeah. I just spell Yalizu. Yud Lamed Yud Zion Vav Me Enecha. Yalizu is to let go of. Don't let your eyes go away from these four aspects. Five. He says 5 aspects. Again, he starts off talking about the 5 aspects. We always talk about the 4 aspects. The interesting thing about this first introduction they ever wrote is he really had 5 aspects. Because there's Keter also,
Yeah.
But Yud Ke Vav Ke is 4, and Keter is like Atzmut. It's beyond. You can't talk about it. So
Right. The Iker, the top of the Kutz HaYud.
Yeah. So Hevchen Rishonu or Atzmut. So right, Atzmut.
Yeah. Right. Atzmut is essence.
Klalut.
Is everything.
Sum total. You could also say something else. It's all. You could say all.
Okay.
All of the light of and Aleph, Chupchik Samach, Bet Chupchik Hey, Ein Sof Baruch Hu. The Mem Aleph Samach, you'll see it in a lot of, not just Ashlag, and all the other Rebbes use this. Me Ein Sof is from the infinite, and then he also Baruch Hu because we're talking about God. So, and that's Matsui ben Ne'atzal. Ne'atzal, okay, this is a very important concept. He talks a lot. The words that are coming up a lot are Netzal, Matzil, Ma'atzil and Netzal. So Matzil, Mem, Aleph, Tzadik, Yud Lamed.
Yeah. Means
That's
next to.
emanator.
Yeah.
If you just say God, is the literally emanator, but emanator is not really, it's not in the dictionary, but it ain't a word, but it ain't in the dictionary kind of thing. You know what I mean? Emanator. And Ne'atzal is the passive, the emanation. Nun Aleph Tzadik Lamed is emanation.
Okay.
Okay. Stop sharing screen.
You were sharing that?
No, I thought I was. It wasn't. Okay. So that's the Matzil and Netzal are very important, the most important words. Atzmut also Matzil, Netzal. Why does it? Etzel is close to, near. So Atzilut is the nearest thing to the Ein Sof, right?
Right.
Really to Adam Kadmon, which for our purposes, the Arizal often says that for our purposes, the Adam Kadmon is the Ein Sof. It's something, but that's a different subject. So Matzil and Netzal is God and the creation. Literally, creation would be Bria, but God and the creation on the level of Atzilut. Atzilut, you understand? Atzilut is the world of emanation, right? The highest world.
Yeah.
So Atzilut, yeah. So so God and the let's just say Matzil and Netzal, and emanator and emanation, and it's the main point. So Chochma is, so keep reading.
Hahu v'hu ha'ikar. And here's the most important point. Liyot she'ein inyan hatachton mishutaf kan klal v'klal. That there is no matter of the bottom of partnering here of everything.
Okay, you can't translate this. It's good, actually. Sometimes you have to do this. If you can't understand it, you just translate each word. Let's put it together. Liot she'ein inyan hatachton. Any matter of the lower elements.
Okay.
That it joined to it whatsoever. Klal v'klal is whatsoever. Joined here whatsoever is the term. So Tachton is the lower elements. Mushutaf is joined to. So, and what is, and so what's called Chochma de'or Yashar. So this light that he's talking about is called Chochma of the direct light. No, okay, Liot she'en inyan tachton mishutaf kan b'chal shenikra. Now the question, I thought maybe it's saying that or atzmut shu klaluta or shematzui b'netzal. When it's in the netzal, we call it, when it's in the creation, really emanation, when it's in the emanation, then that's the main light. Can't be connected whatsoever to anything below the Ein Sof. That's how you translate it. You can't connect it to anything below the Ein Sof whatsoever. Okay. And we call this the direct light of wisdom. Chochma, or the wisdom of the direct light, literally. So once the Ein Sof is in the Netzal, we call it light, and we call the light Chochma de Or Yashar, which what does that translate? Chochma de Or Yashar. What is a dalet? What's that dalet there?
Of.
It's Aramaic for of, yeah. So, because shin is a dalet in Aramaic, you know. This the hey is an aleph, and the hey at the end of the word is an aleph, and the end of the word in Aramaic. You know, there's like 7 letters that we'll talk about another time, or we won't. So, so let's keep going. So the first aspect is the light of the infinite in the emanation, and we call that light the direct light of wisdom. The wisdom of the direct light. I don't know, what do you think is more correct? Direct light of wisdom, or wisdom of the direct light? It's the same thing?
No, it's not.
Difference.
I don't know.
Well, let's stop and let's take a 1-minute break and just think about it. Okay, I'm gonna
It's the direct Yashar. Wisdom, Chachma, the Or Yashar. Wisdom of the direct light. Direct light of wisdom.
Yeah, okay, and so yeah, that's the highest thing we can start to talk about. And it's when the infinite goes into the Natsal. And what is light?
Giving.
Exactly, light is giving, bestowing, giving, however you want to say it. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pritz. Hey, you want to keep going?
Mishutaf kan klal v'klal.
And mushutaf, lo mushutaf klal v'klal. There's no shituf. Shituf is joining or connection.
Oh, sure.
What cannot be connected to what?
The direct light cannot be connected to the Ein Sof.
Oh, what do you mean?
The direct light. Oh, okay. We said we can't talk about anything except for the emanator, the emanation part. Not the
inyan hatachton. Look, read it again. En inyan hatachton, mushutaf kan klal v'klal. When we're talking about the atzmut, we're talking about the infinite in the Natsal, or we could also call that the atzmut. No, nothing below, nothing lower, no lower element, nothing below. Nothing below this could ever connect to the atzmut. Atzmut, what is that? That's the infinite, the light of the infinite in the Natsal. It is, no, the light of the infinite is in the Natsal, but it's for all intents and purposes, which I like to say all intensive purposes, because it's a very intensive subject. And the purpose is to understand it and to use it for the good. So for all intensive purposes, that the light and the infinite are one. And once it's already in the Natsal, then it starts to engender some sort of form that can be described somehow. And the form that's described is called Chochma de Or Yashar.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Okay, it's again, Or Ein Sof Baruch Hu Shematzui b'Natsal, the light of the Ein Sof, which is found in the Natsal. Yahu v'hu ha'ikar b'Natsalahu, comma v'hu ha'ikar liot she'en inyan hatachton mushutaf kan klal v'klal. This subject matter of this sentence cannot be joined whatsoever. and that's called Chochma Avor Yashar. So I guess there's nothing that a human being could possibly connect to or comprehend about Chochma Or Yashar. Okay?
Okay.
That's the first aspect. Meaning it's the mountain that Rabbi Ashlag's famous mashal is the mountain and the rock, and you have the pickaxe, which cuts a pick, which would cut the rock off of the mountain of rock.
Right.
Well, it's one and two. But here we're talking about where it's not even one and two, it's just an absolute and complete oneness, absolute and complete unity that's somehow is the light that comes from the atzmut, from the essence of the infinite. So there's the essence of the infinite. Okay, so this is all the first aspect. Second aspect, take it away, Eliakim.
הבחינה ב' הוא אור דחסדים הנמשך מעילה לטאטה. It's the light of givingness that comes out from the high to the low.
It's drawn from above to below.
Okay.
Nimshach me'ela latata, ela latata. That's write that one down. Ela latata.
Well, that one, okay.
Okay, start again. Evchen bet, hu or.
ובחינה ב' הוא אור דחסדים הנמשך מעילה לטאטה.
No, me'ela latata.
מעילה לטאטה. נמשך מעילה לטאטה. The second aspect is the light of generosity.
Kindness, not just general.
Kindness.
Light of kindness.
The light of kindness that is drawn from above to below. Shu'uhu or Amishutaf habet hat or behit orut vurat an etzal. The bechina that he is the light that joins.
Who is either here? Here it's it.
That it is a light that
There's
joins.
no male and female at this level.
Okay.
There's no it. But in the Atzmut, there's no it. In the Atzmut, in this level, there's no male or female. You say, so say it. So yeah, you can say it, but you couldn't even say that in the Chochma or Yashar. You couldn't even say the it.
Okay.
It's an absolute and complete unity with the Ein Sof. That's Chochma or Yashar in my limited understanding, my Perush of Atzmut or Yashar in my own language, if I may be so bold and arrogant as to say so, that it's Chochma or Yashar is what? What did I just say? It's called
the Chachma is, or the
there's no
wisdom,
here it's an absolute, it's an absolute and complete oneness. Chochma or Yashar is another way of saying the absolute complete oneness of the light of the Ein Sof.
Okay. Okay.
In a bit, it starts coming to a different level because there's what? So Bechina bit is called Or de Chasadim, light of kindness. Just drawn from above to below. All of a sudden we have above to below. In the in Chochma de Or Yashar, there's no above or below even. With God, there's no above, there's no below, there's no right, there's no left, There's no physical quality, obviously. But last night I learned, and I went to a shir last night, and he said that above, according to Rabbi Ashlag, above is, I always say refined and below is coarse, but he said above is, I forgot, there's a very simple word that we all know. It's a better way to say, above. Okay. Too bad I didn't write it down. Anyhow, so let's keep going. So the or,
gentle?
the or chasadim. What is it? Definition of or the chasadim. Or hamashutaf b'hitorut gvurat ne'etzal. Of the second aspect. So or hamashutaf b'hito, or the light that is connected, jointly experienced
In the waking up. Hidorut is in the waking up of the strength of the border.
of the emanation
Of the border.
of
Gvurat.
the second aspect.
Gvura is the strength.
Of the emanation of
the second aspect.
the or the chasadim is the light which is jointly experienced through an awakening of the
Strength.
Gevurat Netzal, the strength of the emanation in the second aspect. In simple terms, how do we make it understandable? There's an awakening. There's an awakening in the second aspect. There's no awakening in the first aspect.
Okay.
That's a footnote here. He would have said there, we didn't discuss any awakening. God wakes up in the infinite. No, you can't even say that, because it's all giving. It's all just one absolute and one continuum. We can't really talk about it. We know it's called the light coming from it. We say, or we can give a name to it, but that's about it. We could say it's we could call it the atzmut, or we could call it the light of what? Chochmah de Yashar, the wisdom of the direct light. That's the, besides putting a name on it, it can't be discussed. Except giving, it's giving. It's God, the power of giving is also in the Ein Sof. There's no giving. There's no giving in the Ein Sof. Or you could say everything is in the Ein Sof. So there's giving and not giving, and and everything's one and everything's not one. You in the Ein Sof, you are me and I am you, and we're in every possible universe is all the same, and there's no comprehension. There's no reason to waste our precious valuable time discussing this kind of thing. Can't talk about Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan said you can't talk about God. You can talk about his aspects, his attributes, how he relates to the world, but God himself, itself, not even him, her, or itself, God cannot be discussed. So there's awakening in the second aspect, when that's called Or Habina Shemashcha. In the second aspect, which is the light of understanding, which it draws. You could say she draws, but then say it draws. There's some sort of there's some sort of joining in beit, meaning what he's going to say later is because you have some kind of the awakening, the hitorut is the Ratzon L'Kabal. That's the hitorut. The will to receive is the awakening that we are discussing. Or hamashutap hitorut gvorot and netzal. So the gvorot of the netzal he's going to talk about it in a few more pages. And like we talked about the three aspects in Bina. Did you learn that part?
No.
Okay, so let's keep going. Bechina Aleph, can't talk about it. It's just or it's Chochmah or Yashar. It's all giving. It's all direct light. Weiter, you can't talk about it. Hevchen Bet to or the Chasadim. There's no shituf. There's no joining up there. But there is a shituf in the second aspect. The shituf, the concept of being joined to, between the joining of the emanation and the emanator. There's a joining of in the second aspect, there's an emanation and an emanator. The first aspect, it's all emanator. emanator. Emanator we'll call the Ein Sof. Okay.
Okay.
Second aspect, there's an awakening. There's a matzil and a netzal, and there's a light coming to. There's a will to receive, waking up. That's completely. It's like a ner bifnei avuka. There's like a ner, a candle before a flame, like a candle in the sun, right?
Right.
Except candle, the sun is not fire, is it? The sun is a nuclear reactor.
Okay.
Whatever. Imagine a 3 Mile Island in the sun. It's just whatever nuclear fission or whatever it is. I'm not a scientist. I can't use these terms, but or bina shemashka. So where do you have or where you have or of the light of Chokhmah and where do you have the light of Chasadim? Which aspect has the light of Chokhmah and which aspect has the light of Chasadim?
Chachma is Aleph, Chasidim is bad.
Yeah. Why does it have a separate name in the second aspect? Different name? Why does it have a different name? That's a question we discussed like half a year ago.
Well, you can actually get something from it.
Hasidim is giving back. Giving back. Wisdom is all giving. Light is all giving. The light of
is it giving back? Is that man to God or is it man to God to man?
Giving back to God. Back to it's not even. There's no man. There's no God at this point. Man is like we're not talking about man even. We're just talking about the four aspects in the God's name. We're just talking about God's name. There's man it's a few stages after that we have man.
Okay, giving back from Bina back to Chachma?
Sorry?
Giving back from Bina back to Chachma?
Bina and Chokhmah are the same. In the first aspect, Bina and Chokhmah are the same. No, so that's already the second aspect. There's no Bina in the first aspect. No understanding in Chokhmah, in the Yud in God's name, and in the Chokhmah, the Or Yashar, whatever you want to call it. There's several different terminology explaining different, have different meanings to them. So when we're talking about why do we have four aspects? We have four letters in God's name. So then we have what we call wisdom, which is the God's light. It's just the God's light that gives and bestows. There's no reception whatsoever. The only way that there's a shituf is when you have some. He'll say in a few pages that light cannot exist without a vessel, and a vessel cannot exist without light. So there are no vessels in Chokhmah, the Or Yashar. Chokhmah, the Or Yashar has no vessels whatsoever. It's a complete and absolute unity with the Ein Sof. But when you get to the second aspect, there's an awakening, and so let's keep going because let's see. I want to see how he says it here, and then we'll see how he says it in a few pages later. So want to keep reading?
Okay. Shu or Mustafa hit orud gurat anatzal tuchina bet. Shu or abina shemishcha.
Shemashcha.
What's that?
The light of Bina that it draws.
That draws.
What draws? I don't know. The light of Bina that it draws, that the second aspect draws, that the light of Chasadim is drawn from above to below. That's a jointly experienced light that comes about from an awakening of the power of the emanation. This awakening, there's a Gevurat and Netzal. Let's say let's call it power. Gevurat and Netzal is the power of there's a will. Gevura, let's just take this one word, Gevora.
Strength.
Yeah, but it says so many different meanings. Gevora is strength, but it's also, is it bravery in modern Hebrew and Old Hebrew? Is it bravery? No, it's also, but it's the force of limitation, really. The soldier, bravery is the soldier going to battle and he goes forward and he extends himself. No, that's it's different. That's not the kind of gevura that we're discussing here. We're talking about a force of limitation, which we call the will to receive. Gevura tenetzal, the power in the strength in the emanation, in the second aspect, and that's called the light of Bina, which it draws. The Gevura tenetzal, which the Gevura tenetzal draws. That this awakening of the strength of the emanation, the strength in the this emanation, giving, receiving. Okay. The emanation doesn't receive until it has a will, which is created ex nihilo, and then okay, let's keep going. The second aspect, Hevchen Gimel.
The third aspect, who or the Hasidim, is a light of bestowal.
Light of kindness.
Light of kindness. Okay. Light of kindness. Ha'olah mitata le'ila, that goes from the bottom to the top.
Ha'oleh.
Above.
Ha'oleh.
Ha'oleh mitata le'ila, that rises from the bottom to the top, from the lower to
below to above. Mitata le'ela, me'ela latata, above to below. Mitata le'ela, below to above. So start again.
So we have, that's the light of Hasidim that goes to the bottom.
Pen Gimel.
V'chein Gimel hu orach the Hasidim. Third aspect is the light of bestowal.
Light of kindness. Light of kindness.
Light of kindness that rises from below to above. Al-Yadei Zivug, by the hands of its
by the hands, don't say hands. Al Yadei is by means of.
By means of the Zivug, the marriage, the Hach'ah,
The union strike. This is called the union strike. In the immortal words of Jason Lasky, my friend in Australia, when we learned this stuff like 20 years ago. We tried to learn the four aspects 20 years ago, and it was like we got as far as the union strike. Okay, so the third aspect, the
wow.
strike of union. Strike.
Michael always uses the term "strike to bind," and I didn't know where that was coming from. Maybe this is the word. Michael.
Strike to bind.
Yeah. Is that what the
I see where he's coming from. Okay, let's go back to the beginning of the sentence. The third aspect is the light of kindness, which rises from
below to above.
By means of
joining to the striking to bind.
What's it joined? I don't see the word joined here.
Zivug. Was zivug?
No, zivug isn't joined. Zivug is, it is a joining. You say it's a coupling.
Coupling.
Say it's a zivug, like you talk about in the physical world, we talk about sex, mating. Male and female mating? Together.
Mating?
Mating, a mating. But here, zivug lizdaveg just means to join two opposing things, or join two different things.
Michael always uses the word mating for the third aspect.
Mating, very good, mating, very good.
So that's why
the light, the direct light, comes in contact with and as you mates with, as it were, the masach, the screen, right? The wall of the vessel, the screen, right? Every vessel has a vessel and light, right? Every sphera is what? A vessel and light. Okay, so let me try to translate it again. So zivug da'ka'a, basically when the force that bestows and the force that resists join together, mate. And then what happens?
And this is called returning light.
Then it bounces off. It reflects.
שעולה ונמשך מצד הנאצל לבד בסיבת העיכוב.
The Sfaradim are much more, to say mating, to say coitus or sexual union, it's not so, it's not modest. The modest way, the Sfaradim actually are very careful, the Sephardi Kabbalists for generations, the way, back perhaps to the Arizal, they didn't say zivug. In the Ashkenazim would say zivug. Like your zivug is your wife, right? So it's in other words, zivug hagun. I bless you with a proper mate. So but the Sfaradim, they say yichud. So translate zivug as unification, union. So the proper translation would be strike of unity.
Strike of unity.
Strike of union. So, but it doesn't sound funny, a union strike. So we'll call it the quote unquote union strike.
Union strike.
So that's a very important concept, and that happens in the third aspect. And we call that also the word for it is the returning light. Light of Chassidim goes from below to above. The difference between light of, there's very simple. Light of Chokhmah is the light that comes from above to below. Light of wisdom is the light that comes from below. Light of kindness is the light that comes from below to above. What happened? There was a union strike. And impact of unity. And that's called returning light, which is drawn from what? You keep reading, she'oleh.
ונמשך מצד הנאצל.
Or ole, or ola, orot. I think or is feminine, actually. I think you were right, it's ola. Or ola. So the light ascends. Keep going.
אור חוזר שעולה ונמשך מצד הנאצל לבד בסיבת העיכוב. That rises and is drawn from the side of the emanation alone in the reason of ikuv. What's ikuv?
Okay, because of the la'akev, and ikuv is, when I was with Rabbi Branvan Zal, and it was Friday, and we went to the Mayan out in Batayan, we went to a natural spring to do the mikveh before Shabbos. The car was, 5 people in the car. And I'm like, I told them I have to go, but I have to stop and get food for Shabbos. So I went in and it was half an hour. They were waiting in the car for half an hour. The Rebbe, I didn't think, I said, I gotta honor my wife, I'll have a more difficult time. I don't know who I have more difficult time with, honoring my wife or honoring the Rebbe, right? So it's Friday. If I don't have food for Shabbos, okay, so I'm going to run in as fast as I can, grab a bunch of stuff, come out in 25 minutes. So he said the next time that I drove the Rebbe to a spring. He said, "B'tzalel ala pamazeh bli ikuvim." This time, no ikuvim, delays. So an ikuv is a delay. The delay is basically how you describe the union strike. It's not a delay, really. It's a barrier. Let's call it a barrier. I'm going to share a screen. Share screen. I'm going to screen. Explore. Share. No, not Explore. I don't like Explore. Google. Share. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
So I'm going to go back. And this will finish right here. We should do the fourth aspect if you have 5 more minutes.
Okay.
So, Yikuv. It could be follow-up, but there's many more. No.
I have a call coming in. 1 second.
Okay, I'll try to figure out a good translation.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
What is this? What's the other possibilities? Akev. Le Akev. What kind of a crazy translation is this? Le Akev. Oh, here.
Delay.
Delay, inhibit, hinder. Hinders, that's a good one. It hinders the light. The screen would hinder the light, block the light. Let's say block. It's not the literal translation. Stop. There we go. Prevents. So the translation is Ola, Ole mitatu le'ela, the light is Ola, or Ola, if it is a feminine word. Orot Olim. No, Ole. The or Ole mitatu le'ela, the light ascends by from below to above by means of the union strike and strike of unification. And it is called that's called the light that comes back is called the returning light. And what is that? It's the light that ascends, that ascends and is drawn from the side of the emanation alone. Because of the way that that strike on the screen, which he doesn't even mention, impedes the light. So this is a problem. It's not a very. That's why this is the first one. People don't start with this because his instructions get better and better. There's a problem here with the way he explains it, because I probably don't understand, but I think it's not as clear as I would like it to be. Okay, he says this terminology, and it's kind of one of those things like we'll see the glossary or see later. So he doesn't mention the essential aspect of it. He just throws out the term first time I think it's the first. Maybe I don't know. Maybe you mentioned it before. I missed it, but you have to. It's like you're in the class with the Ashlag. He says there's a zivug daka, and he says, "What's that?" And you say, "I'll tell you in a second." And he says, goes back. Oh, like we said in the you weren't in that class before, and he said, "It's when the light hits the screen and comes back. The strike of the light on the screen, zivug daka." And then the strike of the light on the screen, strike of the light. And that's called the returning light, which ascends and is drawn from the side of the emanation, from how the screen prevented the light. No, they don't even need a screen here. You don't have to say a screen. We're talking about completely opposing forces that he explained before. Okay.
Okay.
So now we have now what's the fourth aspect?
Fourth aspect.
There's antithetical things going on, will to bestow, will to receive. So there's a zivud daka'ah on those two wills. Next, fourth aspect. It's the fourth line.
He gvura tat habachin he.
Nisibat ikuv, because it prevented it, period. Next aspect. Hevchen revi'i, hevchen dalet,
who, or hagvura ilaha. Fourth one is the light of the power to resist.
No, the upper gevura.
Upper gvura. The hainu chinat bet that we were on as the second aspect.
That is to say the second. That is to say the second aspect, comma.
Shehi.
Who?
Shehu. Shehi.
Shehi.
What?
Shehi. You're correct. I was wrong.
Aviyut. Habina. Shenikta.
Shekanta. Aviyut Habina Shekanta, that she acquired.
Shekanta. The heat gvuruta by her own power.
So again, I'm going to say it in English, meaning this. What's the fourth aspect? Is the light of it's the light of the upper gevura. That is to say, the second second aspect, which in a few pages he'll say is one of the three subdivisions of the second aspect. So anyhow, so the fourth aspect is the light of the upper gevura, which is basically the second aspect, which is defined as aviyut bina shekanta behit gabruta. To translate, por favor.
She acquired she acquired hit gavruta in her with your own strength.
Hitkabrut is not with your own strength.
Or effort.
Hitkabrut is hitkaber is the power to overcome, but hitkabrut is overpowering. Hitkaber, I'll say, overcome, to overpower is hitkabrut. So how do we explain Gevora and Hitkabrut have the same shorish, same root. Gevora is Gimel Bet Resh, and Hitkabrut is Gimel Bet Resh. Hitgavrut, the Hitgaber is an intensive form of Gevora. So overpowering, overcome, what does she overcome? If you call it overcoming, she overcomes her will to receive.
Overcomes the will to receive.
That's a later, that's what he'll say later. I know Bechina Bet Shehu Aviyuta Bina, the thickness of Bina. The thick Aviyut, again, we talked about in the previous lessons, what do you say? Aviut and zachut. Aviut is thickness. Zachut is refined. Aviut, coarse. Aviut is fat, coarse, physical. Zachut is refined. So the God doesn't have any coarseness. He doesn't have aviut. He doesn't have any thickness. God doesn't have any refined. So we have to go back to the root, the root language. The branch language is a human anthropomorphism, meaning it's like a very physical. The branch language is like describing space and time. Branch language, but the root language is this is a very important principle in Rabbi Ashlag's writings. It's like the first thing he'll say in all the introductions, that the language of the roots is close. The roots are in the Ein Sof, right? It's not like it's the opposite from what we with trees here. The roots of everything are above, and so we have to get the Rabbi Ashlag made great efforts to change the language of the Arizal, not exchange it, to explain it in a more spiritual level, which would be closer to the Ein Sof, spiritual, physical, right? So when you say above, when you say width in the Rabbi Ashlag, he would say width is how much you enjoy something. If it's thin, you don't enjoy. If it's wide, you do enjoy. So enjoyment is a more spiritual thing than a physical dimension, because I enjoy something is a feeling based on an emotion. He uses languages of emotion or will. A will is not light. What's light? It's a will to give. So you can't get more spiritual than a will, right? It's the very first. What's the source of a will? It's like you don't know. It's like that's all the way coming from the Ein Sof, is the will to bestow. So up would be he's a refined. You say he's a refined person. You don't mean he's been put in a crucible and smelted, so his bad stuff goes out, and he went to the bathroom and he emptied out his bowels and he's clean and he took a shower, and no, we're talking about his language, his manner, the person's his manner is refined. So that's a spiritual language. That's called the root language in Rabbi Ashlag. So let's go back very quickly. I'm going to just finish the class here. So fourth, I'm just going to fast translate so we can finish up, okay? The fourth aspect is the light of the upper Gevura, that is to say, the second aspect, which is the coarseness of understanding, of Bina. The physics. I don't know how to translate this word. Thick, the thickness of Bina, which it acquired by overcoming, by strength. When Bina wakes up and strengthens herself, she comes out of a duality and goes back towards a unity, right? That's the hitkabrut. And so, and he says, now there's a fifth aspect. So the aviuta bina. What's more refined, chokhmah or bina? And wisdom is more refined, bina. Because wisdom is basically a will, a flash understanding. The light bulb goes on. And then there's thinking about all the details. That is, aviut is more concrete. So separate, let's call it a separateness. Aviut is thickness, but let's say I'm going to say coarse, the coarseness of understanding, like I explained before, that it's more detailed, it's more palpable, more tangible, that understandable, because being is understanding. And how did she get this understanding and this coarseness? She acquired it by overcoming her own will. And the fifth aspect is overcoming the selfish desire in the language of self-help pop psychology. So the fourth aspect is the hitkabrut ratzon nitpael ba'or de chasadim, that the will hitkabrut ratzon, when the will wakes up, strengthens itself. When the will strengthens, a will becomes strong and acts and it uses the light of kindness that is jointly experienced from both the emanator and the emanation. When the emanation feels the will of the emanator, and that's called the vessel of malchut, of sovereignty, of the direct light. Where Gevora, this lower level of Gevora is the secret of the vessel of the 10 sfirot, and you need to remember this. Okay, that's a lousy translation, but we're trying to deal with the terminology here. So at first he had 5 aspects, and then we'll see in a few pages how he not just carves it down to 4.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
I hope that made it less clear.
No, it was really helpful.
I need to try. What we have to do is figure out how to properly understand aviut v'zachut, the proper words to use, like I tried to explain. Okay, so I got to get going.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, have a great day. And
Thank
see
you too.
Thursday at 7?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay,
Thanks.
see you.
Okay, see you.